for balance class. I wore my flamingo shirt today and made sure I put up my flamingo picture because he's kind of our unofficial mascot of our balance program here at the clinic. Why? Because they can stand on one leg. I always ask my patients to show me how well they can stand on one leg, and more often than not, I get the roll of the eyes going, why? Why would I ever do that, Nicole? And that's what I want to talk to you about. Standing on one leg is extremely important for your stability with your day-to-day life. Let me explain why. When we walk, we stand on one leg as we pick up the other leg. So 1/3 of the time we're standing on our left leg during walking. Second third we're standing on our right leg. And the third both feet are on the floor. So in essence, stand on one leg, both feet on the floor. So 2/3 of the time that we are walking, we're actually standing on one leg. So when I ask people who've come into the office that feel unsteady to stand on one leg and they cannot, here's what I tell them. And it's not a very popular opinion, but I tell them they really need to get used to this little guy or this bigger guy, depending on their situation. Because if they don't use this, they're increasing their risk for falling. Because 2/3 of the time, they cannot stand on one leg, so they're compensating in some way. And usually what that means is people will shuffle, or that each step is really Hail Mary. And momentum takes over. So if anything upsets the apple cart, if they turn their head to look at something, if someone calls their name, if they're slightly distracted, or even if they're looking forward and they're just thinking about what they need at the grocery store or what they're going to talk to the doctor about, whatever the case may be, that distraction, whether it be mental or physical, could certainly put them on the floor. The other part that's important about standing on one leg is the longer you can stand on one leg, the better chance you have of catching yourself. Because we know that all falls are not avoidable. There are accidents. Totally get that. We're just trying to reduce the chance that you're going to have one of those accidents. So if you're walking around the bed and you catch your foot on the comforter that's hanging on the floor, if you have the ability to stand on one leg, you can catch yourself or have a better chance of catching yourself by throwing that other foot back down on the floor and having the time to do so. If you don't have the ability to stand on one leg, you're going to catch your toe on that comforter and down you go. All right, that is definitely what we're trying to avoid. And in almost 30 years of being a PT, the stories are endless. I think I've heard just about all of them, and I don't want you to be a story. We're talking in the future about how to get up from the floor, but let's reduce your risk of being on the floor. So when I bring up one of these assistive devices, a cane or a walker, as something I want someone to consider, I usually get the look. People don't want to be dependent on these things. Well, let me explain why I think it's important. Base of support is a big deal. We're going to talk about the science of all this. So when people tend to get unsteady, they tend to bring their base of support wider by bringing their feet apart. And so people tend to kind of waddle a little bit. The point of the cane is to increase the base of support for you. I believe that these devices can be used as a tool, not as something that we want you to become dependent on. And when you're in therapy, you use that tool to support yourself and help keep you safer while you're learning the skills that allow you to get rid of the assistive device, the cane or the walker. Because people like me and the crew here are here to teach you how to learn how to stand on one leg. And by the way, we do not want you to go home and just practice standing on one leg and doing all this kind of stuff or falling down. That is not therapeutic. Okay, there are ways that balance therapists can help you learn how to work up to that, but we don't set you up for failure, we set you up for success. Find where you're able to balance with a more narrow base of support that is a little wider than standing on one leg. Let's talk about that for a minute. When you stand with your feet shoulder width apart, your base of support is the outside of this foot to the outside of the other foot. When you stand on one leg, your base of support is the outside of one foot to the inside of that foot. It's a smaller base than from here to here. So when you stand on one leg, you've got to learn how to balance on that smaller base of support. So in therapy, we start to decrease your base of support until that's easy. Then we bring one foot forward, one foot in front. There's some other tricks, but then eventually, then standing on one leg gets easier. So my thought is, if you use a cane or a walker, that increases your base of support. That allows you to practice that skill of standing on one leg, because if you don't use it, you are definitely in survival mode. And in survival mode, compensatory strategies are going to happen. You're going to shuffle, you're going to do all sorts of this stuff, feet apart, grabbing for things, bending over, and those things are not going to propel you forward. We have to set you up for success, allow you to practice the skills. Walkers, increase your base of support, practice your skills that your therapist will teach you. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But please don't be, if my message today is don't be afraid of these devices. You can use them as a means to the end. It does not mean that you're old. It does not mean that you're incapable of learning how to improve your balance. It's just going to help you, number one, stay off the floor, hopefully. And number two, I believe it speeds up the rehab process if you use these tools properly and consistently, and I have seen it work. People learn how to stand on one leg better when they do their exercises, they listen to their therapist, including using these devices. So these are things I want you to think about. I tell people all the time as well, you look a lot younger and a lot more able-bodied when you're upright with a cane or a walking stick than you do stumbling around, holding onto furniture, or, of course, on the floor. You don't look real young and able-bodied on the floor. Nobody likes being down there. No one likes to call EMS because they're down on the floor naked in the bathroom. It's a pretty humbling experience, so I've been told. So we want to try to avoid that stuff. How do you know proper height for these things, by the way? Just a little sidebar. When you're standing with good posture and your arm dangling, the cane handle or the rolling walker handle should be at your wrist level. So this is short for me. It would need to be up here. And I have little ways of adjusting these things so that you can get it at the right height. And then when you use it, just tap it down. You don't have to touch or you don't have to push hard on it. It's simply a sense of touch, just like when you're just touching the furniture. People say, I don't need that, I just touch things. That's what this is for. You don't lean on it hard for balance. Just tap it down rhythmically. And what's really cool is that we swing our right arm with our left leg, so naturally that should happen, hopefully. Now, if you've had a neurological condition, that might be decreased, but those are my tips for the day. Don't be afraid of these things. Use them to your advantage. Talk to your therapist about how to use this as a tool to help you increase your balance so that you don't need it in future. All right, be well, guys. Have a wonderful day.